The Suez Canal, once the lifeline of global trade, is in serious trouble. This 155-year-old waterway, which once moved over $1 trillion worth of goods annually, is now at risk of losing its dominance. From missile attacks to rerouted ships and plummeting revenues, the challenges are piling up, and major players across the world see an opportunity to take its place. Nations like Israel, Russia, and Iraq are pushing forward with ambitious megaprojects, massive alternatives that could redraw global trade routes forever. If the Suez Canal collapses, it won't just impact Egypt, it could send shockwaves through the world economy, driving up prices, increasing delays, and changing how goods move between continents. But is the Suez Canal truly on its last legs, or will it fight back against the competition? In today's video, we'll explore the trillion-dollar race to replace the Suez Canal, uncovering the key players, their bold alternatives, and the future of global trade. Let's get started. For more than a century and a half, the Suez Canal has been at the heart of world commerce. Opened in 1869, this 193-kilometer man-made waterway created a direct link between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, allowing ships to avoid the 9,000-kilometer detour around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. This wasn't just a shortcut, it was a game-changer. By cutting travel times and fuel costs, the Suez Canal became one of the most important economic assets on the planet. Around 10% of all global trade passed through its waters, carrying everything from oil and natural gas to electronics and food supplies. But the canal's significance wasn't just economic, it was deeply political. Britain, initially opposed to its construction, ended up becoming one of its largest shareholders. By 1956, Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the canal, triggering the Suez Crisis, where Britain, France, and Israel attempted to seize control. That military conflict cemented the canal's role as a geopolitical flashpoint, a position it still holds today. For years, the Suez Canal operated smoothly, expanding Egypt's economy through transit fees. But the New York Times recorded that cracks began to appear in 2021 when the Ever Given, one of the world's largest container ships, wedged itself sideways in the canal. For 6 long days, the blockage delayed 400 ships, costing the global economy $9.6 billion per day. This was a warning sign, a glimpse into what could happen if the Suez Canal were to fail completely. But the current crisis? It's far worse than a 6-day blockage. On November 19, 2023, the crisis in the Red Sea escalated to an unprecedented level. Houthi militants launched a shocking attack, capturing the Galaxy Leader, a commercial cargo ship. Over the following months, the situation spiraled out of control. By early 2024, Reuters reported that at least 29 ships had been targeted, with 13 vessels struck by missiles and drones. The world's biggest shipping companies, Maersk, MSC, and Hapag-Lloyd, halted operations, citing the high risk of attacks. This wasn't just a security issue, it became a logistical nightmare. With ships refusing to travel through the Red Sea, the volume of vessels passing through the Suez Canal collapsed. In just 2 months, canal traffic dropped by 50%, while container ship transits plunged by 76.2% compared to early 2023. For Egypt, the financial disaster was immediate. In 2023, the canal generated $10.2 billion. By 2024, that number plummeted to just $4 billion. Shipping companies had no choice but to reroute their vessels. Instead of using the Suez Canal, Supply Chain Dive revealed that many turned to the Cape of Good Hope, a far longer and more expensive journey. This detour added 10 to 14 days to shipping times, increased fuel costs, and disrupted global supply chains. The ripple effect? Higher shipping costs meant higher consumer prices, affecting everything from electronics to food imports. And for the first time in modern history, the world began to ask, is the Suez Canal still worth the risk? If not, which alternative can replace it? If you're finding this deep dive fascinating, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on groundbreaking global stories like this. It really helps support the channel and keeps us bringing you high-quality insights into the biggest economic shifts happening right now. Now, let's get back to the race to replace the Suez Canal. As the crisis deepens in the Suez Canal, alternative trade routes that were once considered ambitious dreams are now being taken seriously by governments, investors, and global shipping companies. Each of these projects presents its own set of opportunities and challenges, and while none have fully overtaken the Suez, the race to dominate global trade has never been more intense. From massive canal projects that promise to cut through desert landscapes to northern ice routes opening up due to climate change, the world is now looking for the next great shipping corridor. According to Eurasia Review, one of the most ambitious proposals comes from Israel, where the Ben Gurion Canal has emerged as a direct competitor to the Suez. This massive undertaking envisions a 292.9-kilometer waterway cutting through the Negev Desert, linking the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Unlike the Suez, which is lined with shifting sands that require constant dredging, the Ben Gurion Canal would have solid rock walls, reducing long-term maintenance costs. Engineers propose two parallel channels, each 50 meters deep and 200 meters wide, allowing even the world's largest ships to pass without issue. The economic potential is staggering, with an estimated $10 billion in annual revenue, making it a serious contender for replacing the Suez. However, this project is riddled with geopolitical landmines. The region remains one of the most volatile in the world, and the idea of a major international waterway cutting through Israeli territory has drawn skepticism from its neighbors. The massive $100 billion price tag also raises doubts about feasibility, and while the concept is groundbreaking, no construction has begun. While Israel focuses on its canal, Iraq is betting on a different approach, an overland trade route that could shift the balance of power in global shipping. Known as the Development Road Project, or sometimes called the New Silk Road, this ambitious plan would connect the Grand Fa port on the Persian Gulf to Turkey, creating a direct land link between the Middle East and Europe, stretching over 750 miles. This high-speed transport corridor could dramatically reduce shipping times for goods traveling between Asia and Europe. Instead of relying on maritime routes, cargo would be moved by trains and trucks, bypassing the Red Sea entirely. Iraq has already signed agreements with international partners to push this forward, and by 2033, the project is expected to be fully operational. The country stands to gain billions in revenue while transforming itself into a critical hub for global trade. However, questions remain about the political stability needed to keep such a corridor running smoothly. Decades of conflict have left Iraq's infrastructure fragile, and the success of the project depends on its ability to maintain security over vast stretches of land. Further north, Russia is taking advantage of a completely different natural phenomenon, the melting Arctic ice. The Northern Sea Route, NSR, is rapidly becoming a viable alternative to traditional shipping lanes, offering a shortcut between Asia and Europe that is nearly 50% shorter than the Suez route, according to data from a recent study. For decades, the NSR was dismissed due to its reliance on heavy icebreaker ships and extreme winter conditions, but climate change has started to change the game. As Arctic ice recedes, the Russian government is heavily investing in expanding port facilities and icebreaker fleets to allow year-round operations. Meanwhile, in South Asia and the Middle East, another trade corridor is quietly rising in importance. The International North-South Transport Corridor, INSTC, spans over 7,200 kilometers, linking Mumbai to St. Petersburg through a network of railways, highways, and ports. Unlike the NSR, which requires navigating through harsh Arctic waters, this route focuses on speed and efficiency over land. Studies estimate that the INSTC could reduce transit times by 40% and cut costs by 30%, offering a serious alternative to the Suez. The corridor is backed by Iran, Russia, and India, all of whom are seeking to reduce dependence on Western-controlled maritime routes. However, much of the infrastructure still needs to be developed, and political complexities between participating nations continue to show progress. While some projects seek to replace the Suez entirely, others aim to complement it. As highlighted by Tablet magazine, the Red Med Railway project, backed by China and Israel, is one such initiative. Instead of buying an entirely new canal, this high-speed rail system would connect the port of Eilat on the Red Sea to Ashdod and Haifa on the Mediterranean, allowing cargo to be transferred across Israel in just a few hours. This could serve as a bypass for the Suez in times of crisis, offering a safer and faster route for trade. However, the project, which was originally proposed in 2019, faced major setbacks due to financial constraints, and its future remains uncertain. Each of these alternatives presents a unique vision for the future of global trade. While some promise faster shipping times, others focus on cutting costs or reducing security risks. What remains clear is that the dominance of the Suez Canal is no longer guaranteed. The world is changing, and with it, the flow of global commerce. The trillion-dollar question now is, can any of these alternatives fully replace the Suez Canal, or will the iconic waterway fight to reclaim its place at the heart of world trade? For over a century, the Suez Canal has been more than just a waterway. It has been Egypt's economic backbone, a critical artery in the global trade system, and a geopolitical tool wielded by those who control it. Now, with alternative trade routes aggressively emerging, the question is no longer whether competition exists, but whether the Suez Canal can withstand it. While nations like Israel, Russia, and Iraq are pushing forward with ambitious projects, Egypt is refusing to surrender its position without a fight. Determined to maintain its dominance, the Egyptian government has been investing heavily in expanding and modernizing the canal to retain its status as the world's most important trade route. Recognizing that stagnation is not an option, Egypt has embarked on a series of major upgrades aimed at increasing the canal's capacity, efficiency, and resilience. The BBC reported that one of the most significant expansions began in 2014, when Egypt launched a $4.2 billion initiative to modernize the waterway. This ambitious plan introduced 7 new tunnels, dramatically improving connectivity between the Sinai Peninsula and mainland Egypt. But the most remarkable development came in 2015, when the canal underwent one of its most transformative expansions in history. A 35-kilometer parallel channel was constructed, allowing for two-way traffic along a critical stretch of the canal. Additionally, 37 kilometers of the existing canal were deepened and widened, reducing congestion and enabling larger ships to pass through more efficiently. Before these changes, vessels often had to wait up to 18 hours to transit the canal, a delay that cost shipping companies millions. After the expansion, waiting times were reduced to just 11 hours, reinforcing the canal's importance as a fast and cost-effective route for global trade. Despite these improvements, the challenges facing the Suez Canal have only grown more complex. The crisis sparked by the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea has proven that geopolitical instability can quickly disrupt the canal's operations, driving traffic away to alternative routes. To address this, Egypt has launched new security measures, working closely with international partners to monitor the region and ensure safer passage for vessels. However, security is just one piece of the puzzle. The real concern lies in the canal's ability to adapt to an evolving global trade landscape. The world's largest shipping companies are investing in larger vessels, many of which require deeper waterways to navigate efficiently. To keep up with this demand, Egypt is doubling down on further expansion efforts. In 2023, the Suez Canal Authority completed a 10-kilometer extension at the southern end of the canal, a move aimed at increasing the capacity for two-way traffic. According to the Arab Weekly, this expansion was successfully tested in December 2023, allowing for 6 to 8 additional ships to pass through each day. While this might seem like a small adjustment, the impact on global trade efficiency is significant. By reducing bottlenecks and improving transit times, Egypt is working to ensure that shipping companies continue to choose the Suez over alternative routes. The battle for dominance in global trade is no longer a slow-moving evolution, but a rapidly unfolding contest between history and innovation. The Suez Canal, despite its expansions and technological upgrades, faces an uncertain future. The world it once effortlessly connected has changed, and so have the forces shaping international commerce. Nations investing in alternative routes are not merely reacting to temporary crises. They are laying the groundwork for a fundamental shift in how goods move across continents. The trillion-dollar question is not just whether the Suez Canal can survive, but whether its continued dominance is even realistic in a world that is quickly adapting to new geopolitical and economic realities. A major factor influencing this shift is the growing need for resilience and flexibility in global trade. The past decade has shown that supply chains are more fragile than previously thought. From the Ever Given disaster in 2021 to the Houthi attacks of 2023 and 2024, shipping disruptions have become increasingly costly and unpredictable. Businesses no longer want to rely on a single choke point. Countries that once saw no alternative to the Suez Canal are now willing to invest in alternative routes to safeguard their economies from future crises. Whether it is Russia capitalizing on melting Arctic ice, Israel proposing a revolutionary desert canal, or Iraq constructing a land-based trade corridor, the world is no longer treating the Suez Canal as the only gateway between the East and West. Despite these mounting challenges, the Suez Canal is not yet out of the game. Its strategic position, connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe, remains its most significant advantage, even with competition from the Northern Sea Route or the International North-South Transport Corridor. Egypt's geographic positioning makes the Suez the most direct and familiar trade route for companies transporting goods between the world's largest markets. However, familiarity is no longer enough. Efficiency, security, and cost-effectiveness will dictate the future of shipping. If Egypt fails to meet these evolving demands, the canal's relevance will continue to decline as businesses shift towards safer and cheaper alternatives. The stakes are massive. A permanent downturn in Suez Canal traffic would be devastating for Egypt, where transit revenues form a substantial part of the national economy. The loss of billions in annual income could trigger economic instability, increasing debt and forcing the government to seek alternative revenue sources. Conversely, should the Suez successfully modernize, expand, and secure its waters against emerging threats, it may still hold its throne as the dominant trade corridor of the future. In the end, the fate of global shipping will be shaped by who adapts the fastest. If the Suez Canal is to remain indispensable, it must not only continue expanding, but also demonstrate that it can offer unmatched security, cost efficiency, and reliability. Otherwise, the trillion-dollar race to replace it may soon find a winner. The question is no longer whether the world is seeking alternatives, it is whether the Suez Canal can still keep up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of global trade, check out our next video on how China achieved a major victory in Norway that shocked the West and EU. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one.